I'm Tim Ventura, and we're joined today by Dr. José Cordeiro, a well-known engineer, economist, futurist, visionary, transhumanist, singularitarian, and immortalist. He's been described as the leading futurist from Venezuela and as the founder of the World Future Society Venezuela, president of the Venezuela node of the Millennium Project, and former director of the Venezuela Chapter of the Club of Rome. Jose graduated in science at Universidad Simon Bolivar in Venezuela, management at the European Business School INSEAD in France, and engineering at MIT in the USA. He serves the board of directors of the Millennium Project, vice chair of HumanityPlus, fellow of the World Academy of Art and Science, and executive director and founder of the Ibero-American Futurist Network. Jose has been published in more than 10 books in several languages, writes in several newspapers in Spanish, and has been interviewed by international media, including ABC, BBC, CNN, and many others. And he has participated in science documentaries with the Discovery Channel, History, and Nat Geo. He's traveled to over 130 countries around the planet and hopes to travel to the moon and Mars as well. Jose, welcome. It is a true pleasure and honor to have you with me today, sir.
It is my pleasure, Tim, also to be with you and to talk about the future.
Absolutely. Well, and today we're actually discussing themes from your new book, The Death of Death, which you co-authored with David Wood. So this is a giant topic. I know that this is close to your heart. You have covered so many different types of futurism and technology, but it seems like this is one area that we can really focus on today. So if it's okay, let me ask for a high-level overview of what the book's about and what inspired both of you to partner up together and write it.
Yes, actually the book is about longevity and rejuvenation technologies. And my co-author, David Wood, he actually had just published a book called The Abolition of Aging. And I said, I know David for 20 years. And so I told David, your book is fantastic. So let's combine some of your book with what I'm writing myself and create a new book called The Death of Death. And that is how this book came out to be. Just published recently by Springer Nature, the #1 scientific publisher in the world in English. But it is in 12 languages, including the original one in Spanish, La Muerte de la Muerte. And the book is in Russian, in Japanese, in Korean, in Arabic, in Turkish, German, French, Portuguese, and many more languages coming up. So I'm really excited that this has become a global bestseller throughout the planet.
Well, I think that it is incredibly timely. And the key point of this is so important, and it's something that people need to be more aware of, that death is not inevitable. Now, in the past, it was, right? And I think that many people are afraid of having a false hope to think that we can overcome that and extend our lifespans indefinitely. But I'm wondering, has this inevitability completely changed yet? And if not, when do you see us crossing the tipping point, I guess?
All cultures, all religions have talked about immortality. The first book written by humanity, the Epic of Gilgamesh, was about immortality almost 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, written in the cuneiform writing. And then another famous book 4,000 years ago, the Book of the Dead in Egypt, was about immortality of the Chinese emperor who built the terracotta army, who wanted to be immortal, or the Spanish looking in America for the fountain of eternal youth. Everybody, all cultures throughout history and religions have been looking for immortality, but until now, that was not scientifically possible. But now it has become scientifically possible, like many other things. You know, talking through telephones, first with cables, now wireless. This is possible today. Traveling in airplanes, even going to the moon has become possible. And then also very soon going to Mars. So things that were impossible before have become possible. And I love science fiction because the science fiction of today is the science reality of tomorrow. So many things that we believe are science fiction are becoming real science. And one of those, which is the biggest dream of humanity, as I mentioned, since the beginning of written history, immortality. And all religions, I also emphasize, also talked about immortality. But they talked about immortality in some other time, in some other place.
Yeah.
And now, thanks to science and technology, we can probably have immortality here and now.
Well, you make such an excellent point. There are so many things that are just completely foreign to our perspective. When you mentioned that a moment ago, what came to my mind was I drive a Tesla, and for decades, people said electric vehicles will never come. It's impossible. It's a pipe dream. And yet there it is. And I come home, I plug it in every night. I don't put gas in it. It's that easy, and it doesn't have to be difficult. It's just about science and technology finding a way. And so life extension, obviously, it's much more complex and there's a ton more social impact to it. But to me, it seems like the same thing. It's more about the paradigm changing than it is simply science and technology, right?
Absolutely. Now that we have the science and technology, we need to change the paradigm. In fact, we need to change our mental chip, because in our mental chip, we have been accustomed to dying because there was no escape from death. But now we understand that this is possible, this is real, and this is very, very close. And many people think that we are about 20 years away from curing aging and reversing aging, if not earlier than 20 years.
Well, so for many people, religion is a means to accept and deal with the reality of our own mortality. So I want to ask about how religious viewpoints may complicate life extension. I'm sure that this is something that you have given much thought to. Now, on the one hand, average lifespan continues to increase, and faith hasn't had any issues with that, right? I think over the last 100 years, we've added at least 25%, maybe 50% to the average human lifespan. Haven't been any problems with religion. But if we reach a point where people can choose to live as long as they want to, effective immortality, how do you see the various religious institutions dealing with that?
Well, religions have always talked about immortality, so I think they should be open to immortality, but here and now. And if you want immortality somewhere else, some other time, you can have that too, according to your religion in the future. But if you live long enough now, we might be able to live long enough to live forever, which is what my friend Ray Kurzweil talks about in his book, Fantastic Voyage. Fantastic Voyage, Live Long Enough to Live Forever. He talks about how we are going to pass 3 bridges to immortality. The first bridge in the 2010s that took us to the second bridge now in the 2020s with the first technology therapies, and then into the third bridge into the 2030s with the first nanotechnology therapies. And then finally in the 2040s, we will have rejuvenation technologies available for everybody who wants it. This is an option. This is not forced. In fact, maybe some religions will not want to live indefinitely in this planet. In fact, many religious traditions have different ideas, even about science and technology, like Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses don't do blood transfusions, for example.
Yeah.
Or the Amish really don't want technology beyond the 18th century. Which is funny to me, because why the 18th century? Because that is when they left Europe and came to the Americas. But why not the 15th century or the 20th century? In any event, maybe some religions will decide not to stop aging. So this is an option. And again, this will not be forced. But I think most of humanity will say this is good. This is positive. This is going to be available to everybody. And most people will decide to rejuvenate themselves.
Do you think that one of the changes is a shift, again, going back to paradigm, do you think that there is a shift towards a disease model view of aging that's underway?
Actually, so far, we haven't had health care. What we have is sick care. So
Yeah.
we actually take care of people when they are sick, and we actually have to think about being healthy. And also, one interesting thing, more and more people are beginning to say that aging can be considered a disease, but a curable disease. Aging is a condition that can be reversed. This was discovered by the Nobel Prize in Medicine, Shinya Yamanaka, who got the Nobel Prize in 2012 in medicine. He discovered that aging is flexible, aging can be reversed, and he identified some genes that can reverse aging. They can also accelerate aging, that I don't recommend to anyone. They can accelerate, stop, or reverse aging. So now we know this is scientifically possible to reverse aging. And we need to understand that this is happening very soon because people are doing a lot of research, a lot of investments on rejuvenation technologies.
Well, there are a couple examples that are really close to my heart. Back in September of 2015, BioViva CEO Liz Parrish underwent experimental gene therapy that boosted her muscle density and lengthened her telomeres, which reversed common markers of biological age. Liz and I have done actually a couple of podcasts together, and over the last few years, it looks like everything is progressing very well. She has all of the positive effects that she expected and apparently no negative side effects. Another example that, again, is very, very exciting for me is Dr. David Sinclair over at Harvard Medical School, who talks about reversing the aging in muscles and brains of mice. And he has a very large team, as I'm sure you're aware.
I know Liz actually before she got her therapies in 2015. And I admire what she's doing and some other people who are really biohackers because these therapies are not yet approved by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. So they are doing this on himself. They are biohacking themselves, their bodies, their own biology. And this is giving impressive results. And there will be more and more biohackers, more and more people doing experiments because science and technology is showing what is working on animals to extend the lifespan of animals and to make them live much longer. I'll give you 3 examples. In the last 20 years, we have been able to multiply the lifespan of mice about 100%. So we have mice that live twice as long as normal mice. Mice that live like about 2.5 years now live 5 years. The same has been done with flies, fruit flies, Drosophila melanogaster. Now we have Drosophila melanogasters that live 4 times longer, the equivalent of 400 human years. And with some worms, like C. elegans, scientists have been able to extend their lifespan 10 times. That is the equivalent of 1,000 human years. These are called the Methuselah worms because they live like 1,000 human years equivalent. And scientists have done this in the last 20 years, and research keeps on moving forward. So I am very, very optimistic. And I'll tell you even more why I am so optimistic. We have discovered that immortality already exists in nature. There are some life forms like the immortal jellyfish. They are called immortal because they do not age. There are some jellyfish that are called biologically immortal, and also some hydras, small animals as well, that are considered biologically immortal. So we know there are immortal organisms, and even more interesting, we ourselves, we have immortal cells. The germ cells for reproduction, they are called biologically immortal. This is the scientific name. Their scientific term is they are biologically immortal, and they are the most important cells because they are the ones used for reproduction. But not only germ cells are biologically immortal, also cancer cells. And this is bad, but it has given scientists a lot of information. Cancer cells are mutant cells that stop aging. Cancer cells, what they have in common, any kind of cancer in any part of the body, in any person, is that cancer cells do no longer age. Cancer cells become biologically immortal. And cancer cells did not go to university. Cancer cells do not even know how to read or write, and they discovered immortality. So it is not that difficult to discover immortality because cancer cells have done it. That is why I am so optimistic based on what scientists are discovering now and learning from cancer and learning from germ cells that are biologically immortal, or learning from immortal jellyfish, or learning from hydras. We are very close. And I want to watch this program in 10 years again, because I'm convinced we will cure most cancers in about 10 years. This is moving so fast. We are learning so much now that we can sequence the genome of all cells very cheaply. And we are going to discover the mutations that cause cancer. And we are going to stop those mutations to stop cancer. And we are going to use the good conditions of germ cells or jellyfish to extend our lifespan. So I always say immortality is not only possible, immortality already exists in biology. The proof that it is possible is that it already exists. And even cancer cells discover it without going to university.
Well, that's absolutely remarkable. So I'd like to touch on some of the social ramifications of this. The first thing that comes to mind is the aging baby boomer population. As I recall, they are roughly between 66 and 77 years old in the United States. They're the largest cohort of, our demographic, I guess. And I'm wondering if they are playing a role in the rapid advance of anti-aging medicine, because they are reaching the point where they desperately need it. And this is such a large pool of people, and they have significant resources to put into it. Are they driving this forward, at least in part?
Well, they will be more and more. People need to understand that this is real, that this is scientific. That is why I try to explain simple things that cancer cells discover immortality, that most people don't know it. Most people ask around, most people don't know that cancer cells are called biologically immortal. This is how scientists called cancer cells, biologically immortal. Also, most people don't know that in the year 2012, biologist from Japan got the Nobel Prize because he discovered genes that control aging and that he can reverse aging. So people need to understand more.
Yamanaka factors, right?
Yes, if people understand this, then they will ask for more. So I believe that the baby boomers, once they learn that this is possible, once they read The Death of Death, they will be more inclined to ask politicians about this and to invest their own resources. Because when you are a baby boomer today, 70 years, 75, you have nothing to lose but your life. And if you have money, if you have resources, then you should fight the biggest enemy of humanity. And I also like to emphasize that the biggest enemy of all of humanity is aging and death. That is what causes the most suffering in the planet. In advanced countries, like in the USA, 90% of people, 90% die of age-related diseases. People, well, of course, they die of accidents, homicides, suicides, AIDS, COVID, even global warming, if you believe in that, or anything like that. That happens, it is true. But if you add all of those causes of death, they represent only 10%. 10%. 90% of Americans die of age-related diseases. So we should have a global campaign, because if we had this for COVID, which was a small pandemic, in historic terms, COVID is really nothing compared to the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague killed 1 out of every 3 Europeans. 1 out of every 3. It's incredible. It was horrible. That is a major crisis. Or AIDS. AIDS has killed maybe about 40 million people in the planet. So these are big pandemics. COVID was a tiny pandemic in historic terms. However, for the first time in history, it paralyzed the planet. So I want people to know that there is a really big pandemic that is killing all of us. All of us are being killed, not by COVID, not by AIDS. We are being killed by aging. Aging is the common enemy of humanity, and it kills 90% of Americans. So this is what we have to do. We have to stop aging. People need to understand this is scientific and that we are very close to stop aging. And we need to accelerate it because every day, 110,000 people die of age-related diseases. This day, today, 110,000 people throughout the planet. Yesterday, 110,000 people died of age-related diseases. Tomorrow and the day after. This is the biggest humanitarian crisis in the planet. It is not climate change, it is not extraterrestrials, it is not the Russians, it is aging. Aging is the common enemy of all of humanity, and we need to stop it. We are very close, and we need to accelerate this process.
Well, those are excellent points. And if I could add to that, one of the other things that I think comes out of this disease model view of aging is we start to look at, the net investment that we put into people that is lost when they pass away, as well as the trauma to family, friends, people in the community. I mean, there is so much that is lost, literally a lifetime of experience and knowledge and love and caring is wiped away every time someone passes, And right now, again, we have social tools like religion and, various rituals and ceremonies to memorialize people that we use to try and cope and deal with that. But I think that as we start to look at this from the disease model, we will really start to look at what an incredible negative impact aging and death has on society.
Absolutely. And in economic terms, aging is horrible. About 80% of the medical expenditures are in the last 5 years of the life of a person. 80% of the medical costs. And then after all that money, the person still dies. If the person didn't die after 80% of the medical costs, you would say, okay, fine, but the person still dies. So now the idea is to put this money at the beginning so that people don't age. Not aging is good not only for you and for me and for our families, it's good economic sense. Aging is bad economics. Youth is good economics. In fact, I like to say also that health is wealth. If you are healthy, you can be wealthier than if you are sick. Sickness takes you into bankruptcy, and it creates so many personal, family, and societal problems. So the biggest enemy, again, also economically, is aging and death. So for economic reasons, we need to stop aging. It is not just the suffering and all the horrible conditions that we have to go through aging, but also economically. So yes, we need to stop aging. We need to put the money at the beginning so that people don't age, not expend the money at the end when you die anyway. So we need to change the paradigm. We need to change our mental chip, and that this is possible. And we need to advance this research. So I am not at peace with death. I am at total war with death. I reject death. And my goal is to kill death before death kills me. So I am very open about this. We need to kill death, because if we don't kill death, death will certainly kill us.
Well, and again, going back to the title of the book, The Death of Death, some of the things that you talk about in terms of treatments are exponential advances in artificial intelligence, tissue regeneration, stem cell treatment, organ printing, cryopreservation, and genetic therapies. So this isn't just one particular path of research. This is an all-out assault to kill death, right?
Yes, there is a convergence of many technologies, and actually, artificial intelligence is helping a lot. Artificial intelligence now can diagnose patients more than human doctors because artificial intelligence and robots will be able to get all the information, to read all the literature that we humans cannot do it. And even more interesting, they can also read your genome, also get all your medical data. We produce a lot of medical data. Here I have one of these wearables, this ring. This continuously produces data that artificial intelligence can monitor to tell me if I have some health problems. We are going to have more and more information. And for that, we need artificial intelligence also to develop new drugs for certain diseases and to do a match between the genome and some therapies because our genomes are different, so we might be predisposed to some diseases, and artificial intelligence will help. But anyway, it is not just artificial intelligence, it's so many other things happening together, and now lots of money are going into rejuvenation technologies. All the big technology companies like Amazon. Well, Jeff Bezos and some other billionaires created Altos Labs, and they began with $3 billion investment to stop aging in Altos Labs. But not only Amazon or Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, he has said that he's going to put 99% of his fortune to cure all diseases, including aging, which is also important because more and more people are beginning to call aging as a disease, but a curable disease, a condition that we can treat, a condition that we can stop and we can reverse. So Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan, who is a medical doctor, who studied biology at Harvard, where they met. They are also putting 99% of their fortune. The same with Microsoft. Microsoft is putting a lot of money into understanding how cancer works, the mutations that create cancer. And Google also created another company called Calico, California Life Company, about 10 years ago, also to understand aging and to reverse aging. All the big companies, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, Amazon and Apple, Tim Cook has said that Apple will be remembered in the future, but what they will do in health. Interesting. Forget about the iPhones. He said the future is health, and Apple is also moving into health. And not just in the USA, in China, companies like Baidu, Tencent, they are also investing heavily now in longevity. The Koreans also, Samsung has a huge health plan as well, medical plan, and many, many more devices, wearables to monitor our conditions, health conditions, so that we can understand our bodies, our biology, and make us live longer and longer while we have rejuvenation therapy. So yes, we live in incredible times. Technology is advancing exponentially. Like my friend Ray Kurzweil, he talks about exponential trends, and he's the one who uses the year 2045 for immortality. He talks that at the latest, in 2045, we will become biologically immortal through rejuvenation therapies. And not only immortality, but also we will reach the singularity, a mega hyper super intelligence equal to humanity's intelligence combined. We are living in incredible times of advancing exponential technologies.
Well, Jose, on that note, let me thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely incredible being able to speak with you. Again, the book is called The Death of Death. You co-authored this with Dr. David Wood. I think it's absolutely wonderful that you guys were able to tackle this issue head on. And, I think the more that we repeat this message and get it out there, the more it will just remind people that death is not inevitable and medical science and technology is driving forward to solve these challenges. So I will put a link to the book in the show notes as well as to your sites and to your info. I would love to have you back in the future when you have the time. And let me close by asking, what is coming up for you in the next few months in 2024?
Well, I am running for elections to the European Parliament. I am a Spanish candidate for the European Parliament, where I want to push these ideas of longevity. I am also writing another book, which will be the continuation of the death of death, and it will be the life of life, because it is not just life extension, but also life expansion. We are going to expand our capabilities. But let me tell you, this is so exciting. This is the best time to be alive and to remain alive, because we are between the last human mortal generation and the first human immortal generation. And I ask my friends, where do you want to be? Do you want to be one of the last stupid people, I say, who wants to die? Or do you want to be one of the first intelligent people that wants to be living longer and younger? Because the goal is biological rejuvenation. The goal is not live indefinitely old. No one wants to be old, and even worse, indefinitely. The goal is biological rejuvenation, so to live indefinitely young. So I want to watch this again, as I told you, maybe in 20 years when we will have biological rejuvenation, and we will see ourselves and remember today when we were old, today, because in the future, we will be able to rejuvenate. So this is the best time to stay alive. Let's stay alive. Let's hang in there, and let's help these technologies to develop faster for the betterment of humanity.
Wonderful. Let me thank you again so much for your time today, sir.